Hello, CK, and welcome to the World Vegan Travel Podcast.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am thrilled to have you on the podcast to talk about, dining in Washington, D.C. and the life and the vibe that travelers can experience when they go there. And you are a long-term DC resident from what we talked about before the call and also information that you've given me. And that's so interesting because DC is a unique place in the world, I think. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do in the vegan space and your creative pursuits?
Sure, I live and work in Washington, D.C. I write science fiction novels, and I have a series that's been published called the Impact Series. And so far, it consists of 4 books, but I have 2 more that are going to be published soon. And my main characters are usually vegan, actually always vegan, and I have other characters that are vegan. So it's kind of my way of incorporating vegan food into kind of a creative way. So when people are reading it, maybe they think, oh, being a vegan is cool. I'm an environmentalist and I've been working in Washington, D.C. for 20 years. And there's a lot of environmental implications and reasons, really important reasons for our vegan lifestyle contributing to a better environment. Often science fiction has environmental themes, right? And natural resource battles and issues. And my main character, she's vegan, so it comes up when she orders and when she's on a quest to find out. I should say the premise of the book is that there's a global mass shooting and almost every gun owner in the world turns their weapon on themselves in a terrifying 15-minute window. Psh, worldwide chaos. Of course, the United States gets hit the hardest because, you know, most Americans, not most, a lot of Americans have guns. There's a very crazy gun culture here. So she has to go on this quest and figure out how on earth and why on earth does something so catastrophic happen. And being a vegan comes up when she's trying to travel from different states. She just happens to be a vegan, but it's also kind of relevant in the sense that the book has a lot of environmental themes, and being a vegan is better for the environment.
I love it. And now you're a lobbyist, I think, in your main job, I think. So how did you go from this industry into creative writing? Of course, it's communication. I can see the threads there, but sci-fi, does it feel like a natural part of lobbying?
It's interesting. As an environmentalist, I've done everything. I've done policy, I've done grassroots, basically trying to get Americans to encourage their lawmakers and decision makers to vote in ways and take actions that protect the environment. Air, water, wildlife, biodiversity. We're in a climate and a biodiversity extinction crisis. So getting a little frustrated with that because we have all the science, we have all the reports, we have all the activism, we have polling that shows that Americans are concerned about wildlife and the environment. And then you run into this huge wall of corporate ownership of our legislatures. And now it's like on steroids how bad it is. So, when you speak to a lawmaker, you're really talking to oil and gas. I just started to get really frustrated with the one tiny step forward and then 10 feet backwards. So I think the creativity for writing these novels came out of my frustration. So I was like, well, I'm going to just try a different angle. And creativity is a really healthy way of expressing ourselves, be it whatever it is, painting, music, novels. I kind of channeled my love of the environment, my frustration with politics, and my love of food and vegan food into my novels. I think it's like the next step for trying to educate people about why protecting our environment and wildlife is so important. And it's also, again, therapeutic for me and my frustration with the state of the political world in America and Washington, D.C.
Mm. And so, can you tell me again how many books you've had published? You've got 2 more coming out, right?
Yes. So the Impact series consists of The Shooting, which is book 1, Collision, which is book 2, and Judgment, which is book 3. 2 were published in 2022, 1 was published in 2023, and The Aftermath was published in 2024, just last September. That one is like part of the series, but it's 5 years later after the shooting, because people kept asking, like, once the dust settled, are we in a dystopia? Are we in utopia? Like, what is the world like? So I was like kind of responding to the readers' questions, and then I wrote Aftermath. But it has different characters, but there's a lot of vegans in that one too. Then the 2 books that are coming out, one will be out at the end of this year, one will be out next year, but we don't have set dates. The publisher will be giving those to me soon. They're prequels, kind of leading up to what happened with space and what happened with the collision and what happened with like Kessler syndromes and these other elements of the books and politics that led up to the global mass shooting on July 20th, 2020.
That is absolutely fascinating. Now, I've got a bit of a confession to make. I am not a huge reader for a ton of reasons that I won't get into. But if I was a big reader, or if I was going to read fiction, like this would be the kind of thing that I would really love, because I love apocalyptic themed stuff like The Last of Us, The Walking Dead, anything with the apocalypse in there. Just think that's an absolutely fascinating premise for a book and now a series. So congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think you would love them. If you ever on a really long plane ride, I don't know, going somewhere fun in the world, maybe Japan, maybe Africa, maybe you could check one out. They're pretty fast reads. They are very suspenseful. They're like 1 day after the shooting, 2 days after the shooting, 3 days after the shooting. So they're really suspenseful.
And are they available on Audible or audiobooks? Because it has to be on audio.
Yes. The 3 are Audible or anywhere you download. And the woman who read them is really awesome. Aftermath is not done yet, but we're going to get that done soon. That doesn't happen with my publishing house until like 6 months after the book comes out. And of course, they're on ebooks and in libraries and Amazon. Almost any bookstore can order them. So they're basically anywhere and every format.
Perfect. I'm going to check it out after this call. Maybe I will be inspired to actually pick up a book. That would be amazing. All right. So you are based in Washington, D.C., a place with a unique political and cultural identity. How does politics show up in the vegan food scene there? I'm curious.
So politics in DC influences everything. So every time we get a new administration, things change and the city almost like weirdly reinvents itself. So right now, I feel like things are not good for the vegan scene at all. We have a lot of restaurants shutting down, not just vegan restaurants. There was a thing in the Washington Post saying that 40% of restaurants in DC will close by the end of this year. Our unemployment is skyrocketing because we've had massive layoffs of the federal government workforce, kind of traumatizingly, really fast since the Trump administration has come in. So that's a trickle down. A lot of people in DC who either work for the federal government, for nonprofits like environmental community that lobbies and advocates and works with the government, or maybe you're a contractor that supports the government, or you're in politics. So there's like this whole machine. And then the restaurants, the museums, the tourism supports all of that as well. So those are like our big industries, right? So when one gets hurt and gets hit bad, it's a trickle down effect. I would say like during the Obama years, when Obama first got elected, woo, there was party in the streets. I felt like there was 1 million restaurants opening every day. We had this influx of kids, not kids, 20 and 30-year-olds just flowing in. There was like this really like optimism in the air. A lot of vegan restaurants were opening. It's always been a multicultural city. We have every kind of food in the world. But it's gotten like we didn't come out of the pandemic very strong because of the crime rates, and we had a lot of other issues. And then with the Trump administration cutting so many jobs so fast, it's just been really bad. And it's been a bummer watching some of my favorite restaurants close.
Okay, it's just so fascinating that the administration could impact these things so significantly. And by the sounds of it, a city that's already on the edge a little bit for a number of reasons, that just makes the impact even stronger of these things. Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, Washington, D.C., of course, is, even if you're not into politics, it's definitely an amazing place to visit because you have these world-class museums there, etc. So could you give us a bit of an overview of the reasons why people might visit Washington, D.C., even if they're there just for tourism reasons?
Right. I feel like in America, almost every kid or every person comes to Washington, D.C. at some point in their life. Maybe it's a school trip, maybe it's their parents, maybe it's a college trip, because, this city belongs to every American citizen. The Smithsonian's, which are air and space, natural history, Native American, African American. We have museums, art museums, and almost all of them are free. They're paid for the tax dollars, but they're pretty spectacular, and they circle the mall, and it's very like institutional. And then on one end of the mall, you have this amazing, it's my favorite one, the Lincoln Memorial. And then on the other end of the mall, you have the United States Capitol, and in between there, you have the White House and the Washington Monument, and it's very spectacular. It's also part of our history. Tourism is huge here. People all over the world come for the cherry blossom season. And we have the Heritage Festival, which is always in July on the mall. And that represents different cultures and different countries. I think people from all over the world are also intrigued with DC because it is, it used to be almost the center of the world, right? I mean, it's the most powerful place in the world. We can debate that's declining for a long time, and then a lot of brilliant people, geniuses who, run NASA and run NIH and science and investigations into pandemics and whatever else. So it really has this big, broad draw. I would never say it was never really a foodie town. Like, just thinking about how long I've been here, I think it was a real steak and potato, kind of like old school, like lobbyist, politician. The Museum of the American Indian has a cultural food, so it's kind of got a famous cafeteria, and they have vegan options. And a lot of it is just marked as vegetarian. If you ask, is it vegan, they'll tell you, because they have a lot of lentils and potatoes, and it's actually healthy food. There's always going to be some French fries and chips because it's America. There's food trucks everywhere, but very few are vegan. The museums have generally an Impossible or a Beyond Burger, but it's more catering to the vegetarians. I never know if the bread is vegan. Like, it's just better than nothing. If you come to the Capitol, the United States Capitol has a big visitor center underneath it. And that's a beautiful building, and it's very historical, and everybody should come and tour it. It's just very cool. When you come to DC, and you want to meet with your senator or your House member or their staff, you make an appointment, and then you go to these buildings and you get lost in these mazes. But it's really fascinating to see all these, like, you might see Nancy Pelosi just walking down the hall, or Schumer, and people just doing their business. Well, each one of those buildings has a cafeteria, and each of those cafeterias, basically most of them, I think like 5 out of 6, have really good salad bars. So I always warn people, if you're on the Hill, if you're at the Capitol or whatever, go into those buildings, because they have really elaborate salad bars. And they have sandwiches. Now, that can change and flips over a lot, but you can basically find some really good food. And they also have a ton of junk food and meats and everything,
Right.
but you can always eat on Capitol Hill.
That's a good start, at least. So you kind of alluded to the fact that the vegan food scene is a little bit bleak in DC at the moment, and hopefully that will improve over time. Are there any standout places? Maybe they don't have 10, but maybe they have 4. Do you have any recommendations of great places that vegans should check out, for something a bit special?
Absolutely. Elizabeth's is like one of my favorite restaurants in DC. It's fully vegan. It's been around, I think, for probably like 8 or 10 years. Chef is always around when you go. It's very expensive. It's $110 per person. It's like a price fixed meal, seasonal. The food, the caviar, like her vegan interpretation of things is just wow. And then you can get a wine pairing. The restaurant itself is beautiful. To me, it looks like an English dining room. There's beautiful big portraits, and it's in a row house. There's the mall. And then about a mile around the mall is very touristy. You go back a few more blocks and you have like somewhat normal neighborhoods. And Elizabeth's is around there. She's just off of K Street. It is delicious. It is divine. I cannot recommend it enough. Then there is Oyster Oyster, which I would say is my second favorite vegan restaurant. And that is a Michelin-starred vegan restaurant. Yes, we have 2 Michelin-starred vegan restaurants in Washington, D.C., Mita and Oyster Oyster.
Michelin starred or just mentioned in the Michelin guide? Because they're not always the same thing.
I should double check that. I will definitely double check
that. Sorry to contradict you there.
No, I will definitely double check that, because I feel like they put Michelin all over the place, but I didn't know there was a caveat difference.
Yes. From what I know, even if you're mentioned it in the Michelin guide, it's a big deal. Absolutely. But it's having 1, 2, or 3 Michelin stars is like the tiers. Obviously, 3 stars is the highest. And I think, isn't it, Levin on Madison in New York has the 3-star vegan Michelin restaurant, but that's also very expensive. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
So Oyster Oyster is weird. It's all mushroom. It means oyster mushroom is what they're talking about in the oyster. However, the second oyster is really oysters. And the chef or owner loves the Chesapeake Bay. I think they grew up near the Chesapeake Bay, which is oysters is a big, huge deal, both environmentally and food-wise in the Chesapeake Bay. So you can get the vegan menu, which is all vegan, or you can get the vegetarian menu, which has some oysters. And some people in the vegan world debate whether or not eating oysters is vegan. I don't eat any animal products, so I don't eat oysters. But it's just an intriguing kind of history. It's a tiny restaurant, so you have to make reservations. Most of these places are only open like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I think sometimes on Sunday. You have to plan ahead, because when I have friends that are vegan come to DC, I'm always like, book your reservation now while you're even just thinking about it, then plan your trip around that, because they're so worth it. Oyster Oyster is $135 per, it's a price fixed thing too. So the menus are very seasonal and they change, but they've always been outstanding. I will say this though, Oyster Oyster is really proud about saying that the tip is included, which in the US is a big deal because tipping is very expensive. So Yeah, I mean, and it's so confusing in DC right now. So standard is like 20%, but then there's this service fee, and we're having these debates about service industry getting paid different levels. I mean, it is crazy. DC is very confusing on the tipping scene right now. America can be confusing, but DC is particularly confusing.
I can't imagine it being more confusing. I remember hearing something about how, like, depending on sales, the server actually has to pay out the busboys and the other people in the restaurant as well. So if they don't get a tip, they can actually be out of pocket. And I'm just like, how is that possible? But yes, tipping in North America is very confusing. I am not a fan.
Yeah. And DC, the city council, we keep voting to try to fix it. And I think things just get more complicated. So yeah, I'm not a fan either. Just put it in the price, make sure everybody has a livable wage and that they can raise a family. And why is this so complicated? But okay. And then the other one, the big other vegan one is Mita, which is also, I thought Michelin star, but it might just be mentioned Michelin. I have not been there yet because, again, tiny. And also, you have to, like, it's another Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. You have to book months in advance or weeks. I mean, if you want a popular thing. So the 2 or 3 times I've tried booking, I haven't been able to get in there, and I'm dying to try it. People say it's fantastic. And it is the most expensive of those, 150, which is a lot of money. Food is really expensive in DC. It used to be, I think, not cheap, but you could get really good food for affordable prices. And everything in the city has just been skyrocketing. I think it's the tariffs. It's just bad and hard for restaurants. Restaurants don't make a lot of money, right? I mean, people work really hard in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, I was very interested because recently we were just in Vegas for a friend's wedding, and I really felt that eating was really expensive compared with my last visit or even compared with Canada. And normally Canada is more expensive. So I was chatting with some locals and I'm like, what's going on here? Is this like the tariffs? Is it all of the other factors? Food is more expensive and to raise, or is it just Las Vegas trying to get more money out of its visitors? And he's like, I don't know, but you're right. It is definitely more expensive than it was 5 years ago. So maybe it's a theme that's throughout the US.
Yeah, and it's not just because, as a vegan, people will sometimes say, well, vegan food's so expensive. And I will like whip out, like, you could do this meal and this meal and this meal for about $5 and it's super healthy. I'm a very healthy eater. I know that there's a lot of vegan food that's processed and ultra processed, and I try to avoid that. And these restaurants that I'm listing are really good food, healthy food. But also like McDonald's, just as a reference point in US, a Big Mac is like $8 or $9 now. And that used to be the cheapest. They're really expensive now. There's something definitely going on.
And also inflation as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yep.
all of these factors. Yeah, for sure. It means you really have to be mindful about what meals you're going to get and what you want to splurge on. People would eat out a meal a day, 2 meals a day when they were traveling in the past. I'm sure some people are making the decision to, okay, maybe I'll just have a nice meal once in my trip, for example. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would say none of the hotels, like I have friends come in all the time for work, business, conferences, fun, and none of the hotels cater to vegans. And I feel like this big international city, we've kind of gone backwards. There used to be more like hippie, granola, boutique hotels. They're either no longer in business or they have kind of gone the other direction. So there's always going to be like maybe a vegan option like oatmeal or for breakfast, or there's going to be a Beyond Burger or Impossible or something. Make sure you have a refrigerator in your room and then go to one of these great places, and I'm going to go through some of the less expensive places. You could bring something back to your room and maybe eat it at lunch the next day during your conference. Now, if you're having things catered in these hotels, getting a vegetarian or vegan option, if you ask your organizer, that's almost always available. But if you just go sit down in the restaurants, it's pretty shocking how backwards DC has kind of become.
Bummer.
Yep.
Do you have any other places you would like to recommend to our listeners?
Yes, we have Planta is my like absolute go-to. Do you have those in Canada?
No, but as you say it, I feel like I've heard of it, and by the sounds of it, it is a chain. Is that right?
Yep. So we have 3 in the DMV. So 2 in DC, 1 in DuPont Circle, 1 in just off of Georgetown, and then 1 in Bethesda. And those are all very touristy areas. And it's 100% plant-based, reasonable. You could bring your family, if you're on vacation, you're exhausted and you want to go in and have a really good drink and some delicious food, just all this traditional food like bang bang broccoli, sandwiches, amazing Caesar salads. And it's sort of affordable. It's like middle of the road. It's a nice restaurant. So that way, and I bring a lot of non-vegans in there because it's not going to blow them away with the super expensive, but they can try it. Oh, and DC Vegan. That's one of my favorite restaurants too. So if you come to DC, you have to go. It used to be, here we go again with the money. It's like an Italian deli, but it has all kinds of delicious food. It's when I cater, when I have a party and I don't want to cook, I go there. I get all their sliders. I got a jackfruit slider that's amazing. I get a bunch of salads, a ton of food, and it's pretty affordable. They used to have this botanical garden restaurant underneath them, which was much more fancy. You know how restaurants sometimes do that? They have like they're really fancy, expensive, delicious, candlelight, romantic, and then they have their deli place that does the catering and everything. So Botanical Garden closed a few months ago, and it was devastating to me because I really love that place.
Oh, yeah, that happens in Vancouver a lot too.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention it. Jose Andre is kind of a famous chef. He goes out all over the world and does a lot of cooking in, the Gaza Strip or after a hurricane or after things. And he's famous for like feeding people.
Oh, I think I've heard of him. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, he's a heroic, awesome human being. And he lives in Georgetown. I see him walking around sometimes when he's not out in the world saving people and feeding people and doing wonderful things. So he has 3 restaurants right in the touristy area of DC. Oyamel Cocina Mexico, which is my favorite of his. It has a lot of vegan options. It's not a vegan restaurant, but there's a lot, and its food is so delicious. And again, it's right off the mall. So if you're coming as a tourist and you want some delicious food, it's not that expensive. He has Zatinia, which is a Mediterranean place. Again, it's right near the convention center in Gallery Place, which is a touristy area. That has a lot of vegan options. Not a vegan restaurant, but vegan options. And it's kind of a tapas thing. It's really a beautiful restaurant. And then there is Haleo, which everyone loves, a tourist love, and they have very limited vegan options. I support the restaurant because I support Jose Andre totally. You go through and you just pick, I want the lentils, I want the Brussels sprouts, I want falafel, I want grilled vegetables. And so we have a lot like that. So that's one thing when people come to town. So we have like Shook, which is totally vegan. They market themselves as Israeli street food. So good. We have Plant Burger, which is in Whole Foods and stuff with the chef or the cook's interpretation of a burger, which are fantastic. Shook has won awards for their lentil burger. I just like that better than Impossible and Beyond, but I'm also happy that those exist, right? You can go out in the world and you can get something to eat. It's like fun junk food, right? And then we have Cava, which I love. Cava was just ranked as the most healthiest fast food restaurant in America. And it was started in DC. It's a chain and it's gone all over and it's got like really delicious food. We have Busboys and Poets, which has got a library. I think there's 4 or 5 now in the DMV, and they have many vegan options, but not a vegan restaurant. But that's a really very DC type place. Yeah. We have Purple Patch, which is in Mount Pleasant, which is a Filipino restaurant, and it wins a lot of awards. It's, again, not vegan, but has delicious vegan options. It's locally owned, and it's just fantastic. We have Baked by Yale, which is a bakery right across the street, and you can bring your own food in. They have vegan sandwiches. It's vegan corned beef sandwiches, vegan bagels, vegan bread, vegan cupcakes. Not totally vegan. It has all the other stuff too, but you can always get something delicious at Baked by Yale. It's local and locally owned. You've been to DC, right?
I have. I think for about 3 nights or something like that, and we just hit all of the museums. It was totally amazing. Those museums are incredible. I think I got an Airbnb at that time. We're talking like 12 years ago or something now. So I think we did eat at some restaurants and maybe make some packed lunches or something like that so that we could enjoy the museums, which were amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DC is an intense city to vacation in. People don't come here to relax. It's almost like I saw 17 things in one day and I'm going to do 5 more. And yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's management for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And there's always little kids that are so tired. And I grew up in Orlando, so I know tourism. There's always the little kids screaming and crying because, it was just too much for them. Even as a kid, I remember I came to DC as a child. My parents brought us here. We sat in the Capitol. We watched, because there's a balcony where you can watch senators and House members debate and argue. It kind of inspired me.
Tell me, what are the times to maybe consider your visit to coincide with in DC, and what times of the year or events are really good to avoid if people want to have a good experience?
The cherry blossom season is so famous and it's really beautiful, but it is congested and packed. So if you love crowds, that's great. If you don't like crowds, wait, a week or 2 before or after, because that's still spring. The cherry blossoms tend to go in March now because of climate change. It used to be April, but there's events for like 3 weeks. So there's parades and there's like the cherry blossom 10-mile race. There's all these famous things. But again, every single thing is super congested. And if you're going to come, you have to book your hotels way in advance. Anything to do with inaugurations are like really congested too. You kind of got to watch the political calendar. I would say this: when the House and the Senate are gone, which is always in August, they take these very long vacations, like 2 weeks in around between Easter and Passover. The whole month of August during election years can run all the way up to November. And when they're gone, the city just kind of relaxes. So there's more hotels available because there's less conferences because they're not lobbying. As a DC resident, we love holidays, 4th of July, Labor Day, because all the tourists are downtown. The tourists come in, but DC is a town that leaves. People go home at Christmas, meaning wherever they came from. People go home at Thanksgiving. You can get reservations in your favorite restaurant. You could park, you know. It's one of those things where I'm like, I will visit friends and relatives on off things, but as a tourist, yeah, it's good to track the political calendar as well. DC is really hot in August,
Yeah.
but again, if you're coming just to do the museums, it's well, you've got the school kids out, and there's whole classrooms, whole buses get loaded, and there's like hundreds of kids going into the Air and Space Museum. It's just a little bit different than most seasonal things.
Got it, got it. And how do people get around DC? I believe that there is like a metro service in DC, and is it easy to navigate, safe buses? How do they work, etc.?
Yeah, the metro is very easy. I mean, there's right at Smithsonian, there's like a loop of orange, a loop of red. You get a map, you study it for a little bit. It's very easy. I would say one thing though, it's also the main form of transportation for DC residents. So rush hour, if you're going to be on the metro between 8:30 and 9:30, that's not a time to be like trying to figure out how things work. And between 5 and 6 or whatever. But once you get the flow of it, and people are so used to tons of tourists that it's fine. We all get along. It's pretty affordable. Safe, we've had times where it was not safe. Right now, I would say it is safe. In DC, I feel like they're very safe and pretty easy to figure out. It's like any city, like London. It's way better than trying to drive, and you can get through things really fast.
We've covered sights to see. What are some ways that people may experience like the local culture, theatre and live music scene in DC? Because I'm sure it must be very lively.
Yeah, we have a fantastic music scene. We have some of the greatest venues, I think, in the world, and definitely in the United States. The 930 Club is totally famous. Meriwether Post Pavilion, which is a little bit out in the burbs, but it's one of the ones where you can sit under a pavilion or up on a grassy knoll hill. We have Capital One Arena. We have the baseball stadium. So we get all the big shows. I mean, anyone mostly who's touring is going to come to DC at some point. We also have the Kennedy Center, which is fantastic, or at least was until Trump took it over and now he's going to rename it. But anyway, it's like historical. It's a beautiful building and it gets everything. Anything that's on Broadway at some point, it pretty quickly comes through DC. If you love musicals, I love musicals, plays, we have other theater venues. We have the famous Shakespeare Theater, which is running always different interpretations of Shakespeare plays. We even have the East Street Synagogue, which we're going to see Billy Idol there next week. So it's a tiny little synagogue that's got this amazing sound system that, you know, it's also authors come and famous people, but they do these acoustic music scene things, which are spectacular. Constant is an amazing music scene and theater and plays. And it's everything from the Woolly Mammoth, which has got the more modern, you know, and then you got the Kennedy Center, which is the more like traditional. And also the Kennedy Center almost always has, not always, at least 3 days a week or so, has free orchestra music, and they'll put it to Star Wars, or they'll do famous things, and then they have like lots of kids in there. We have the National Cathedral that's got religious music, famous opera singers, Italian Renaissance music, and I have a friend who works up there, so she's always saying, you got to come up and see this. Almost all of our music venues don't serve vegan food. They finally modernized using reusable cups because a lot of people drink beer or wine or whatever. We have hockey, we have basketball, we have football, and we have baseball. So that's another thing with tours. If you're watching, if you like the sportsy scene, then if you want to stay in Chinatown, which is where the basketball plays, and the Cap Center is, which is where hockey is, just be aware of that, because when there's something big going on or there's like a championship, the whole place gets flooded with people. The baseball stadium is very beautiful. It's near the water. There's a lot of hotels out there. But again, if baseball season's going strong, you might want to monitor what's happening. So there's always something happening in DC.
And is there a place like a one-stop shop where you can see all of these amazing opportunities? I don't know, on an online site like what'shappeningdc.com or something like that? Sometimes it's hard to know what's out there. If you don't know what's available and what the venues are, it's hard to know what to Google.
It really is. And I wish that they had something more concise. Everyone seems like they have their own track of how they do things. I mean, it's super frustrating. Like, I'll have friends in town and we'll go to the Smithsonian and there'll be some amazing show of some fantastic, architect at the building museum that I don't know about till I get there. And I read the newspaper. Our newspapers, the Washington Post, also covers a lot of local stuff. So I feel like I know more than a lot of people, but I'm also stunned by things that are happening sometimes. And I will say too, we have a pretty active vegan society of DC, and they do have a website. So they have events where you can go to like Poplar Springs, which is an animal sanctuary. So if you want to see other things in DC that are a little bit more like vegan friendly, they do bike rides through DC, and then they have a vegan potluck, or they all go to vegan restaurants. So if you're a vegan in DC, you could check out their calendar.
Right. I love it.
Yes.
So, CK, I want to thank you so much for coming and being on the show, recording on a Sunday. That's so kind of you. I would love to know, where is your next trip that you have planned?
I have nephews getting married in October in Seattle. I have a nephew getting married in North Carolina. So I'm kind of family focused in
Right.
US. And I will say I've been to all 50 states. So I love exploring the United States. And whenever we go anywhere, we add on a national park or something fun. But outside the United States, nothing. I'm kind of rating on Rwanda.
Ah, fabulous.
If
Amazing.
things ever get sorted out in that country, I can't wait to go to
Actually,
the
I'm
Middle East.
happy to tell you that the travel warning has decreased. So it's looking better. It's on the to-do list. It's on the to-do list if you're interested in joining Wild Vegan Travel.
I would love
Okay,
that. Yes.
amazing. So please tell us again your website and how people can connect with you. Maybe read some of your books that you've written.
Sure. My website is www.ckwestbrook.com. And from there, you have all my books and the descriptions. You can also sign up for my newsletter, which, has when the next books are coming out. That comes out once a month. And I'm on all the socials. I'm on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Blue Sky. And it's all CK Westbrook or Westbrook CK. But if you plug it in, it always comes up. And the books are available everywhere you buy books in every format. And yeah, I'd love it if people checked it out.
Thank you so much.